All righty. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on this recorded presentation. Greater Nevada is finding a growing need for financial education from our community members. So that is why each month we showcase the financial topic that we hope will help you in your financial well-being journey. After this webinar, you can expect to receive information including free materials and tools to continue your financial wellness goals. If you RSVP'd prior. And if you want to view this webinar or other webinars, you can view them on our GNCU YouTube channel, which I will also send. Just a couple housekeeping items. During this presentation, we will offer question and answer breaks. And for now, go ahead and please just place yourself in the off status, your mics and your camera for now. But during these question and answer breaks, absolutely happy to have you unmute, or even if you feel so brave, take yourself on the camera to ask your questions. Helping me during these question and answer breaks is my business development specialist, Valerie Hahn. So you will see Valerie in there helping me with the chat box just to kind of control that. So please feel free to utilize that chat box. All right, let's get started. My name is Saray, and I'm the financial education specialist here at Greater Nevada, and I am so happy to be your presenter for debt management. This is part 1 of 2, so this is a big topic, and I try to break it down into 2 of them. So thanks for joining us. A little bit about me. If this is your first one, thank you so much and welcome. I am a native Nevadan and local Renoite, born and raised. I live with my cat and my senior dog, which I'll apologize now. I'm working from home, and if they pop up, they are just saying hi. And then if I'm not at home with them, I love spending free time outside on our trails. We have lots of local land here. I started my career with the Greater Nevada in 2015 while studying to be an educator. Now I'm a proud financial educator. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into Debt Management 1. On your screen, starting as you're learning with me today, I am also learning with you. In this financial well-being survey, it's just a few questions to answer of what do you want to know more about? We'll actually base our 2025 webinar topics on what the feedback is in the survey. So if you want to hear more of something, now is your chance. We'll have that at the end as well. So as we're diving into Debt Management 1, we're going to talk about a few things here. So the most common types of debt and just kind of myths about good and bad debt. We're going to go over some money mentalities and spending cycles. I think those are really important as we talk about debt, and we're going to work on getting better. I guess that's the general talk today. Signs of debt distress. So maybe you are not in debt, but these are good to know if you just later in the future, life skills. Okay. 3 main tips to managing debt. It really comes down to these 3. And then we're actually going to dive into actual debt management strategies and some do's and don'ts. All right. And if you want that more detailed look, you'll get a look at that kind of a preview of debt management too at the end. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So today on the screen, I'm just showing some statistics that generally say our debt in America is rising. And with that, you're not alone in this journey. If you're on this debt repayment strategy journey, you're not alone. I just want to pause here and say that debt is a part of life. There are often times that we need to borrow money in life, a vehicle, a home, education, higher education. These are all times that having the skills to manage debt and pay down debt are essential. So just give yourself grace if you are here, that is a part of life, and getting the skills from today should help you, right, for the future. First, I do want to talk about the common types of debt, just kind of going back. There's secured and unsecured debt. So I kind of have a lock and an unlock. Secured debt is, let's say, a secured loan that you put down the money for, a secured card. We've heard of that. Unsecured is typically what people are working on paying back with debt repayment strategies, and that is typically a loan that is lent to you without funds behind it, kind of that cushion or that collateral. Two different types of debt, revolving and installment. Let's talk about that. This is often why in our credit card debt webinar, we talk about, does it feel like credit card debt continuously is a cycle that you can't get out of? Well, it's actually possibly part that the way the product is set up. So let's talk about this. We have installment credit and installment loans, which are you receive one large amount of money and you pay that down until it's zero. So an example of this would be like a car loan. I get approved for a car and I make my payments until my car is paid off. Okay. Then we have something called revolving credit, where money's borrowed up as often as needed. An example of this would be a credit card. So we can borrow and pay back and borrow and pay back and borrow and pay back. So that may be why you feel like that cycle, because it actually is a revolving credit. We'll talk about debt consolidation a little bit in this one. And the big difference is you're switching from that revolving credit to an installment credit. If you do a debt consolidation loan, all of a sudden, where on revolving credit, you don't have an end date and you don't have a set payment amount. Whereas when you switch that to an installment loan, it's going to have an end date and a consistent payment amount. All right, let's keep moving. So I love to talk about the myths of debt. What's good debt, bad debt? Often we hear that mortgage or our rent or student loans are a good debt because they're an investment back to us. Okay. And then we hear that car loans and carrying over credit card balances are bad debt. But I just want to pause here and say that technically all debt can be bad debt if you can't pay it back or struggle to pay it back, right? We have people that end up unfortunately foreclosing on their homes or having trouble paying student loans back. So is it a good debt? If we're having trouble pay it back. So really just knowing what's good for us and in our budget is really what it comes down to, living within our means. So I do want to spend some time on our money mentality and our spending cycles. If you are here in a debt repayment and that is your goal, totally normal. I want you to step back, look at this chart and give yourself some grace and figure out, this told me a lot of where my money mentality came from. Our money mentality is formed often from things that happen in our life. Our family, our friends, entertainment can morph the way that we feel about money. So I just have a few generations up on here. So take a look at where you are. Look at the impactful events that happened. I look at myself, I'm in this millennial category, and I'm looking at that we were, our parents, my parents were credit heavy. And so that came down on this generation, really trying to rely on not being credit heavy and going back to cash, so we can kind of see that pendulum shift there. All right, so I thought that was really interesting. And then I have a younger brother who's in Gen Z, and 9/11, he was born in 2004, and so to have the effects of wars and things like that, just as our grandparents did, really is morphing the way we feel about money. Okay, so it's not just you, it's definitely everything that's happened in our life. Okay. I want to pay some time on our spending cycles that we often find ourselves in. And we don't have to be stuck in these spending cycles. Again, today is about making better habits, putting positive thought towards our finances, and just checking in. I'm going to tell you right now that not everything is going to be perfect, right? Not every month can I meet my goals, but today's talk is about looking past at the back or at the past month and saying, maybe I didn't do that, but what can I do better? And also recognizing the positive behaviors we've done in the past that have gotten us this far to continue those positive behaviors in the future. So as we go through these, I often found myself in a lot of these. So just kind of soak this in and see if you can remember a time of, oh yes, I remember where I was there. And then we're going to eventually talk about where we want to be. Okay, so this earn, spend, this is often described as a paycheck to paycheck cycle. We have what feels like just enough to get us by to the next cycle. Okay, then maybe we have had a time where we earn, spend, we spent too much, and I need to borrow to spend. Okay, this borrow may mean putting it on a credit card. It may mean getting a loan. It may mean how getting a payday loan. We hope that you never do that, and we have different solutions for that. Um, this also means transferring or borrowing from your savings account. Okay, so are there times that we're pulling from our savings account to make up for that cycle? All right, down here, bottom left, we have earn, spend, save. Okay, we're getting better. Saving is finally on the board here. That is great. But this is putting savings low on the priority list. It's very last in our cycle. Where we strive to be is this earn, save first, then spend. If we're allocating savings as the first bill that we pay, we no longer have to think about it. It's taken care of, okay? So we call this the pay yourself first attitude. I want to pause here, and I think there's a common misconception of the pay yourself first. I am not saying go impulse buy. Okay. You should always allocate some, fun money in your budget for each month. But what I mean by this is pay yourself first into your savings account. Pay your retirement out of that check. Pay into your overdraft account. Pay into your vacation savings account. Okay. You're going to feel so much better. We worked so hard for that paycheck that I use myself as an example. One of the first things that I'm doing is I am paying into my vacation savings to treat myself and pay myself first. And make sure I'm on track with my goals for my wants and needs. So look at that, soak that in, and see how we can try to get ourselves to the pay ourselves first. Alrighty, you guys, we have come to our first question break slide. This is kind of what it looks like. I'll pause here. I don't see any questions in the chat, but any questions so far? All right, looks good. We'll go ahead and continue again. Please feel free to utilize that chat feature if you're tuning in live with us. Let's go ahead and dive into some common signs that we're having debt distress. Maybe we don't realize this is debt distress, but these are common signs of, hey, let's pause, let's relook at our finances and see where we can be better. Okay, so the first one, this little piggy bank, using our savings account as overdraft protection, or doing that earn, spend, borrow, spend. Okay. And that's often if you're having to transfer from that or put on your credit card for regular monthly bills, that can be a sign of debt distress. If you're using payday loans, we're past that paycheck to paycheck cycle and we're in that borrowing cycle. Okay, so common signs there. Credit card, let's take a look at that. Being over the limit on one or more lines of credit. I'll even take that a step further and say if you're over that 30% utilization or even in that 50% utilization, our little red alert should be going off that we want to work on getting that down below the 30% and hopefully get into a cycle where we're paying off our debt monthly if it's on a credit card. Okay, paying the minimum due on credit card accounts. This is often that earn, spend, paycheck to paycheck cycle. Okay, we're just paying the minimum. Next one, let's take a look at this mailer down here. Delaying medical or dental visits because you don't have enough cash to pay them. Big sign, okay? We want to make sure we're having regular visits. All right. And then delaying one or more floating bill to the next one. So, what I mean by this is I will pay my electricity bill, let my water bill go overdue, and flip flop them, or something along the lines of that. Not able to pay our bills in full each month. So, that's a time to look at our spending plan and see how we can monitor and adjust. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. These are three of the very key steps if you're doing your debt management journey. This is what a lot of this comes down to. Not saying that these are the only options, okay? We'll definitely go over more options. Highly recommend you catch our debt management too. But typically, when we're doing our spending plan, and we're finding ourselves in common signs of debt distress, or we're carrying over debt, these three things can help us. So first, we need to create a budget. We need to compare our ins versus our outs. Are our outs or expenses more than what's coming in? We need to adjust that, okay, and see where we really are. One way to do this is increasing income. We'll talk about that. And the next is to reduce our debt. All right, so let's take a look at these more thoroughly. So the first step is to creating and maintaining your spending plan. Like I said, I know not every month is perfect, right? We have flexible expenses, and maybe my grocery bill was more last month, and so I can't put as much into my savings or my debt management plan this month. But give yourself some grace and know where you're at, okay? So first of all, start tracking your spending. See where you can be better. Think actively, where do I want to be better? And the best thing I can recommend is use a system that works for you. I've gone through all kinds of systems, apps, spreadsheets, all kinds of things. And the one that works for me is one that I want to continue to check on. Okay. So test different things out, see what works for you, what keeps you motivated and want to check on it. Living within our means, okay? But to do that, we really need to know how much is coming in versus how much is going out to see if we're living within our means. What is our budget? How much can we afford? We need to look at our spending plan to do that. And of course, prioritizing our needs over our wants. I know we're going to hear this chat a lot, but that's really what it comes down to, reminding ourselves, is it a need or a want? And we're going to get into more of that later on. Setting realistic goals for yourself. And typically, what I mean by realistic goals in debt management too, we go over SMART goals, but hold yourself accountable with a due date. Can you add a payment plan and challenge yourself to get this done in a certain amount of time? And monitor and adjust as needed. Like I said, not every month is the same. Just want to pause here. We do have a detailed webinar on creating a spending plan where we walk you through these steps. So I just wanted to pause there. If you wanted to see that, please feel free. If you want more in-depth steps of creating a spending plan, you can absolutely watch our webinar on that. All right. Next step was to consider increasing our income. I think it's easy for us to think of reducing our debt, right? Can we save? Can I not shop name brand items in the store? Things like that. Can we use sales? But we often don't think about how we can increase our income. So if you have the availability, can you work overtime? Okay, work overtime when you're available to, when it's offered to you, if you're available to. One thing I do want to know is just don't become reliant on overtime. You know, we should really consider this additional income and make sure we're living within our means to where that's additional income and not part of our regular day-to-day expenses where we're relying on overtime to pay our regular expenses, okay? Can we find additional work? Right, we can be really creative with this. Now, I know immediately, I love the flexibility of some of the options we have in today's day of the driving and delivery services, Uber, DoorDash, things like that. That's great. You can do it when you want to. Also, be creative. I've met people who sell portraits or dog walk or dog sit, things like that. So many flexible options. And the greatest thing about this is you can do it when you want to and stop when you don't need to, okay? See if you can find a flexible option. My very favorite option, and I actually use this a lot, I didn't think to do this, but sell off old items. Are we not using anything around the house that we could sell off? And we have really easy ways to do this. Yes, you could do a yard sale, but now we have even more technology at our fingertips, like Facebook Marketplace or OfferUp, lots of different selling apps, okay? I'll use myself as an example. I sold off old items to add to my vacation account, right? That was my motivator. So just think about that, some additional creative ways to get income. I will pause there and go, let me go back to that slide. $20 that I sell of an old item is time additionally that I didn't technically have to work for or very much, right? Posting it takes some time, taking photos, things like that, but still I'll take that. All right, now let's look at reducing debt. Okay. Overall, step one to paying down your debt, stop creating it. We need to make an active thought to not add to our debt, not be adding onto those credit cards and then paying those down, right? So let's make sure that we're only using them for an emergency from now on, right? If we can. Let's analyze our debt and really take a look at it. I want you to look at your habits and go, what is the reason for borrowing? How did I get here? Is it common expenses? Is it my monthly bills? Are they my wants that I'm working on paying off? Often we'll buy things that we want right away. And then pay it off over time. So just look at your, history with yourself and see if you can catch any patterns, things like that, that you maybe want to be better at. Right? Consider refinancing or consolidating your debt. So we talked a little bit about this. You basically consolidating debt, you can do this a couple different ways, typically as a debt consolidation loan, which is considered most often at a financial institution under a personal loan or unsecured loan. Okay, but the benefit of this is potentially you have less payments, right? If you're consolidating multiple, use an example of credit card debt. You're paying multiple credit cards at a time when if you go to a debt consolidation loan, you would just be paying that one. Okay. Payment amounts can now go from multiple payments down to one payment. That's kind of nice. And typically a debt consolidation loan is shown to have lower interest than a credit card. Okay. Switching from revolving to installment credit, we kind of talked about that. By having a refinance, if you're doing a debt consolidation loan, you are putting an end date to it and a monthly payment amount, and that can definitely help us visualize the end of the tunnel for debt, okay? Again, setting realistic goals. How much time, what is the cost? And by cost, I mean, yes, physical money, and how much time is it going to take you to pay this off? So I love to look at mine. I will do a debt consolidation plan and go, in my budget, I have an additional X amount of money to put towards my debt. And by putting that amount of money towards my debt, I can pay that off in X amount of time. So be realistic with yourself, see how long it's actually going to take you. Next step after stopping debt, start your plan, right? You're starting to brainstorm things that I can be better at. So put it into action, all right? Hold yourself accountable and put it into action. All right, we've made it to a question slide.
Yes.
And I do see one question, great question, and we will get to that in this presentation, actually. That question is, can I use my home equity to pay off my debt? Thank you for asking that. Perfect timing. We will go into this a little bit more. Yes, you can. A great way to do one of those debt consolidation options here is to use your home equity, right? If you own your home and it's gained equity, you can actually do a home equity line of credit and use that to pay off your debt, and then you would just pay towards your home equity. You can also do this with vehicle equity. Okay, so if maybe you don't own a home, but you own a vehicle that could be, typically I'll give tips of if it's new enough that you could finance it. Everybody kind of financial institutions have different recommendations, but I want to say generally it's within 10 years old, 100,000 miles. Check with your financial institution for details. But if you have a vehicle that you own within that range, that actually you have equity in, you could take that extra equity and use it to pay off some of your debt, and then it would just be like paying on your car, for a little bit longer, or imagine rebuying your car off of the lot. Okay. Great question. We'll get into that a little bit later, but absolutely one of my favorite ways is, yeah, if you have the availability and own a home and have equity, great solution. So with that, actually, we are talking about some consolidation options here. So some debt management strategies that you can actually do versus some that you may need additional help for. So principal payments, making additional payments on our debt. We'll go over the snowball and avalanche. You can also consider consolidation options. So a debt consolidation loan. This also would include that home equity line of credit or HELOC or auto loan, right? Okay. Credit card transfers. I'm going to pause there and talk about credit card transfers. Often we'll get these credit card transfer offers in the mail saying transfer your balance over for 0% for X amount of months, right? Just giving an example here. I really want to warn people of these. They can be a great solution if you are positive you can pay that amount off in that time frame. Okay, because what happens is typically if you transfer over that balance and they offered 0% for, let's say, 12 months, okay, 1 year, you need to be for sure that you can pay off that amount in 12 months, because typically what happens is if you don't pay off your full balance that you transferred over in those 12 months, some of those debt consolidation offers will now charge you that full amount of interest, not just on the balance you haven't paid or that's left over, but sometimes they're going to charge you the full interest on the whole amount you transferred over, which is typically going to put you in a worse situation than what you were in prior. So you need to make sure that you can pay those off in that time that they're offering, or only transferring over what you can pay off in that time. Okay. I am going to pause here because I had a great question come up in regards to the home equity line of credit. For the home equity option, do you have to have your home completely paid off? I'm not a mortgage expert, or I'm not licensed in mortgage, I should say, but typically, no, you do not need to have your home paid off. If you just have equity shown in your home, using the home equity may be a good debt consolidation offer. You can always meet. We have Greater Nevada Mortgage. They're happy to meet with you and even go over, is this a good option for you? They'll look at how much equity you have in the home, really consider what your rate is going to be. And go from there. But it can be a great option. And no, you do not have to have your house fully paid off. Just need to have gained equity in your home. All right, back to it. Recovery plans. Okay, so this is when we're managing collections or we have things in collections. This is steps that you can take on your own. A lot of people ask, what about debt consolidation companies? Okay, I'll be honest, this is just my personal opinion. They can be helpful to some, but I don't personally love them because we're typically paying a fee to that debt consolidation company to pay off our debt, when these are skills you can do yourself and you don't have to pay a fee for it. So I'm all about saving money and not paying additional money to somebody while we're paying off debt. So yes, you can manage collections on your own. And in debt management too, we go into a little bit more in depth with how to do that and steps to take towards managing debt, really just staying calm and in control with the collector. Also giving some tips of you have consumer rights when you are managing collections. So really become familiar with those consumer rights. All right. And you can still build your credit while paying off debt. Often, debt consolidation companies may not consider doing activities to build your credit at the same time. But when you do it yourself, you can be making those positive on time payments, things like that, and really monitor your credit while you're doing it. I want to pause here that we will not be going over some of these today, and this is when you may need additional help from a lawyer or somebody else, okay? This is when you're facing eviction, foreclosure, seizure of goods, or bankruptcy, okay? We typically will ask you to, add additional help to make sure you're getting all those legal matters taken care of. All right, principal payments. This is one that you can do on your own. Like I said, sell off those old items. Can we work overtime to make additional payments to our debt? These are two ways we can do this. They're often called the avalanche and snowball method. They have different names around here, but it's the same idea. So let's start with the avalanche method first. This is when you will list all of your debts and you're going to start paying additional on the debt that has the highest interest rate. Okay, want to pause here, and I'm not saying do not make those other payments. Always be making your at least your minimum payment. If you can do more than that, of course, that's great, right? But you would be putting and just focusing in on the debt with the highest interest. Okay, this avalanche method, I will say, probably will mathematically save you the most money if you're paying the highest interest down. All right. I'm a huge fan of the snowball method, even if it doesn't mathematically pay off my debt quicker or faster or is going to save me the most money. I often lean towards the snowball method because it works for me. Again, we have to do what works for us. So this is when I'm listing all of my debts and I'm going to start focusing on paying additional to the smallest balance. Okay. I like this for a couple of reasons because what I end up doing is I'll make my additional payments. And then once that payment is paid off, that small lowest balance payment or debt, two things happen here. Number one, I can take all of that payment that I was paying and put it towards my next debt that I choose to focus on. Maybe you go with the highest interest and you switch to the avalanche method. That's okay. Do what works best for you. The other thing that happens that I find really a lot of success in is celebrating that small win. I did it. I can keep going. There's one down. Let's move on to the next. I really find that celebrating that small win helps me move on to the next one. So try them out. Do what works for you. All right, let's talk a little bit more about weighing those debt consolidation offers, okay? So some positives here of considering a debt consolidation loan is, yes, again, we're switching from that revolvement to the installment credit. We're all of a sudden going to have a fixed interest rate, okay? Fixed payment amounts, the convenience of having multiple payments consolidated into one. And it saves room on our cards for emergencies. So our credit cards should be used only for emergencies, and now they're freed up for emergencies, especially if you have a maxed out credit card. All right, let's talk about some of the challenges with debt consolidation loan or switching to these. You now have an end date in sight. Okay, I think this is a positive, but some people get taken aback that their debt is going to take X amount of years to pay off. Okay, but you need that end date in sight to be realistic and to get out of that revolving credit cycle. All right. There may be fees to doing a debt consolidation loan or those credit card consolidation offers. So look out for the fees. I don't love fees, right? I don't want to pay money right now. I want all of my additional money to go towards paying off debt or savings. When you apply for it, it is going to typically be a hard inquiry on your credit. Okay, so be prepared for that. But remember, making on time positive payments, paying down our debt, we should see an increase in our credit over time. All right, potential to temporarily lower our credit because of that hard inquiry. The biggest one I really see people have challenges with is this last one. You just freed up your lines of credit, and freeing up your lines of credit means you could potentially add more. I cannot tell you how many times I have had people do a debt consolidation loan where they've paid off their credit cards and now it's in a consolidation loan, and then they go rack up that credit card again. Okay. We need to make sure that we're doing better habits and we're prepared in our spending plan to one, pay our consolidation loan, and two, make sure that we're paying off our credit cards now in full by the end of the month and not carrying over a revolving balance, right? Really thinking of those wants and needs. And we should be, um, using that. I saw a question come in. I'll get to that in just a moment here, but we want to be using that for only emergencies and make sure we're not carrying over that debt. So perfect timing. We have a question right here. So this question's great one. I often find that I'm trying to pay more than the minimum payment, but it doesn't seem like I make a dent. Why is that? Typically um, our interest on top of the minimum payment. Sometimes your minimum payment, let me back up. The interest charged each month can add up. So if you're only paying the minimum, that's going to pay off your interest first, then go towards your principal balance. So if you're only paying the minimum, you may be having a lot of that payment be soaked up by the interest and not the actual principal balance. This is why it's so important to always pay more than the minimum balance. And do it when you can. You are chipping away at it. Maybe it doesn't feel like it. It sometimes is a slow process, but the more that you can put on additional than that minimum payment, you are doing yourself a favor and paying down that interest, right? This is all about paying additional on those principal payments. So if we can do that the more often, right? That $20 that I sold and didn't have to work is $20 additional debt payment. So every little bit counts. Don't forget that, right? Think of that snowball. It's adding up slowly, okay? I hope that helps. All right, let's go ahead and get into just some general do's and don'ts when you're doing debt consolidation or managing debt, a debt repayment, okay? This may come as a surprise, but I'm typically going to recommend that you don't close out your credit card accounts. Okay, I know it may be intimidating once you pay those off, that want to use them again is there. And so typically people often want to say, I want to get rid of it and not even have that temptation. But I want you to consider that some of these credit cards are your longest references. So if you've had that credit for a long time, and you've just built a really good relationship with them, closing that relationship off and closing one of your longest and best references off could maybe negatively impact your credit. They are basically saying you've you can make positive payments on time. You did do a positive job at paying off your debt. Those are all positive things to keep in your reference kind of pocket, your back pocket or your book. I hope that makes sense there. Absolutely do not borrow from your retirement, right? That accumulating account over time is essential for our life later on. So we never recommend taking out of your retirement to pay off your debt. There are other options, okay? Don't trust all debt settlement companies until you do your research and you're really feeling comfortable if you choose to go with a debt consolidation company, right? I guess my advice is going to go and say, make sure you're looking at those fees and seeing if you can get the least amount of fees as possible, see what works for you, the communication, ask questions about your credit and your collection. So just do your research. Don't hide from creditors. Okay. The creditors are more often flexible if you're willing to talk with them and walk them through your situation and come up with a plan to offer and say, hey, I can pay this much. Do you accept? See if they'll negotiate with you. Okay. So don't hide from them, negotiate. As consumers, we have consumer rights, and we can be really protected when it comes down to these things. So don't hide from them, just work with them. Okay, do negotiate with your creditors. Like I said, we have a lot of power and flexibility when we're in these situations, especially when you're in collections, believe it or not, to negotiate with your creditors. Okay, so maybe consider, will they take this payment or can they do a repayment amount to really work with you to get this done? All right. Do good credit coaching. We do have credit coaching available for free, and I will give you that resource at the end and in that email if you are SVP. So, credit coaching can be a great option. Do consider consolidating your debt, whether you choose to go with this option or not. I think it's great to look at all of the tools and pathways we can take towards our debt consolidation. You can do multiple debt consolidations at once, right? I want to pause here and say, let's say you do a debt consolidation loan and you only get approved for, let's say you have 4 credit cards and you only get approved to pay off 2 or 3 of those, okay? Um, Still go with that option. Maybe you're going with the snowball or avalanche method on the 2 or 1 cards that are left over, where you're doing the debt consolidation loans with those other 2. I would say if that happens and you do find yourself in that situation, let me go back to this slide. I would probably consider transferring over the ones with your highest interest rate if you do a consolidation loan, okay? Next, do consider hiring a debt settlement attorney if you are facing those additional challenges, right? Or if you feel like you've gotten to that point, absolutely. Bankruptcy, foreclosures, things like that. Do consider that option. All right, next question, and we are getting to the end here. I really appreciate your guys' time. I hope this started your brain flowing and thinking about how we can navigate. Again, these are all skills that are essential to have. We always will probably find ourselves in a moment where we have to borrow money and learn to repay it back, okay? I do have a question. Thank you. Are there circumstances when it does make sense to close a credit card account? Mm, Probably, yes. I would weigh your options. In my debt management too, I do go over credit, or we have some credit webinars available. Um, I would say if you do consider that, my, I guess, top tip, everybody's situation is individual, and right, we would really want to look at it in depth. But I would say if you're going to get to that point, close the ones with the shortest relationship and not the longest relationship. Maybe you're also shopping by the interest rate, right? What has the lowest interest rate and keeping those ones. But I don't want you to consider only the interest rate. Really consider how long you have been with that creditor and the positive history that could be lost if you close that credit card account. Okay, so I hope that helps you. All righty. Again, everybody's situation is, individual, but I hope that helps those couple tips. This is a look at debt management too, you guys. So we're going to go over these 6 steps in depth of what it looks like to create kind of your full debt management plan. So number 1, stop creating debt. Number 2, a lot of this we've talked about, analyze it. Where are your habits coming from? Create a spending plan and putting it into action. Choosing one of those debt prepayment strategies or a couple of them. Are you doing a consolidation loan, a HELOC, and principal payments? See what works best for you and what is in your budget to do so. We're going to go over setting goals, SMART goals, and milestones. That's really, really important process. Stepping into action we talked about, and maintaining and practicing, right? All things we talked about, but there's a little bit more in depth, a little bit more detail. So please, I hope we get to catch you on that one. So as I wrap you up today, one of my promises is that we do leave you with tools and resources to continue your financial well-being journey. So up on the screen, if you scan this QR code, this goes to our website where you can access a lot of our free financial tools. Along with this is free financial coaching. Yes, we do have debt and spending plan coaching. Explore, we have podcast articles, calculators, okay? And I'll be sending a lot of this to you in that post email. So hold tight. I do a lot of the work for you so you don't have to go searching for it, okay? Again, if you have a moment, take out your phone and scan that QR code. I really appreciate any feedback of what you want to learn more about on this QR code. And just a look at our future webinar schedule. We are finishing up Debt Management 1 in April this month, and next month we will see you for Debt Management 2. And with that, I just want to say thank you so much to those that made it to this Greater Financial Wellbeing webinar series. Number one, congratulate yourself and give yourself a pat on the back for even being here and taking a step to better your financial well-being, okay? And then for those of you that would like to know more, like we said, we will be sending out a follow-up email with this survey attached as well as more information on this topic. And if you want to browse those more wellness resources or to see this webinar again, just visit our website at gncu.org and hover over our resources tab. And with that, I hope you have a greater day.